Right. So welcome to West Slope NAC. And what we will do is go around and do introductions first. Let's see. So board members. So Terry.
Hi, my name is Terry Lawler. I'm a board member and the BCCI representative for the West Slope NAC, and I live on Gale Lane.
Okay, great. Kent.
Yeah, Kent Slack, Pointer Road, board member.
Great. Chris, are you on the board?
Yes, I am. Chris Swenson, board member for a little over a year on Ernst Road.
Okay, Dieter.
Hi, Dieter Loibner, treasurer in waiting, board member, Southwest 83rd.
Okay, great. Thank you. So it looks like we have Officer McCullough from Beaverton Police Department.
Yeah, that is correct. I'm filling in for Officer Wilson tonight. So my name's Officer McCullough. I'm a community service officer for the Beaverton Police Department. So I mostly work with the court, the municipal court there, doing the transports and custodies, as well as help out patrol with crashes, medical emergencies. And then our unit also deals with all the parking complaints and works side by side with the bike team who does a lot of homeless outreach, because we contact a lot of individuals living in cars. So that's my main focus, but I also run the Highland NAC. If you guys ever pop over there, but tonight I am doing West Slope. So I don't know if let me make sure if I can share my screen here. I don't know if you guys can see that or not.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So we do crime stats. I'm sure you've gone over them from the previous month. They get the data together. You can actually find all this online through the Beaverton website. So looking at your guys' neighborhood, it's pretty good. You had one burglary offense last month, and it was for a business.
Do we know what business that was?
I have not. I could look that up. Would be a pretty easy thing to be able to figure out, but I don't have that information at this one. I can pass it on to Officer Wilson if you would like more information on that.
Just more curious.
Yeah, no, I don't have any since these are general stats, I don't have any particulars unless I was involved in the situation, if that makes sense. So then you have larceny and theft offenses were 3. Motor vehicle thefts were 7, so that's a bit high, and then that's the total of 11 in category A. So going to category B, it was all other offenses, so it was 1. So you got a total of 12, which is actually down from the previous month were 15, and then total for the year is going to be 12, obviously. So yeah, you guys have a pretty nice neighborhood. It's not a lot of crime going on there, which is good. So you guys are lucky. Some neighborhoods have a little bit more depending on the area, but you guys live in a good neighborhood. Let me end with sharing my screen. Or
do you have a feel on whether the car theft is a bigger problem in Beaverton than in Portland?
No, I would say that Portland is by far. I checked we have access to stolen vehicles that are reported so that we can be on the lookout for them. I can tell you, looking at it almost every day, that the amount that occur in Washington County, because they do it by county, Washington County is far less than Multnomah County's. I mean, I'm just scrolling down through pages of the Multnomah County versus our Washington County.
Are these listed by where the car was stolen or where the resident lives?
For the list that I just shared?
Yes.
It would be from the West Slope area. So that's going to be every offense that this crime stats are pulled from. They have a citywide crime stat you can look at, so you can look at all of them on the interweb, but these ones are strictly for your guys' neighborhood, the West Slope area.
Okay.
So if
our neighbor had their car stolen, but it was stolen when it was over by the Lloyd Center, which is also where they retrieved it. So I don't know.
I get what you mean. Yeah, no, it'd be geolocated. So it'd be where the crime occurred. That's how most law works, is in where the jurisdiction is held would be where the crime occurred at. So it'd be the same as if you got your car stolen in Portland, it would be a Portland crime, even though you lived in Beaverton. Any other questions, concerns, anything that you'd like me to ask Officer Wilson for next meeting?
And really quick, if anybody in the audience has a question, just use the raise hand feature of Zoom and I can go ahead and unmute you so that you can ask Officer McCullough a question if you'd like.
Just a quick one on motor vehicle theft. So that means the car was actually stolen, not something was stolen out of the car. Is that correct?
Let me see. So it would be, let me look at motor vehicle theft. So that would be that would have to be stolen, I believe. I can triple check on you for you guys, because I think we have just a general theft offenses. So yeah, it'd be, because it would usually be if it's theft motor vehicle. And it's kind of weird how they have it put, because usually it'd be theft of a motor vehicle or theft from a motor vehicle would be a little more clear. So I can get a little more guidance from that by asking the crime stat person, and I'll shoot Officer Wilson an email so she can clarify that. But I'm sure it's going to be, yeah, because I would say it's probably theft of a vehicle, because before you got theft offenses, which is above that one, which is that'd be just a normal theft, so stealing from it. So that's probably going to be the physical taking of the vehicle.
Do you have the statistics on how many are recovered?
I can get that for you. I don't have that offhand. We can definitely see that do a crime stat report on that as well. So we gotta, it depends. So a lot of them, they pop up all sorts of places. Usually, they either show up somewhere else around Beaverton or show up somewhere down in Portland. So some individuals will take the vehicle and then immediately make a beeline straight to Portland. Then, you know, if it's unfortunate, sometimes they'll strip them, they take like catalytic converter out of it, because that's a big problem that we've been running into with individuals taking catalytic converters.
Does there seem to be any immediate impact from the law passing that makes it much more difficult to sell them, the catalytic converters?
There hasn't been any legislation that I'm aware of that's like keeping them from. It's the reason why is because it has platinum in it, so they sell that. So it's the catalytic converters themselves have materials in it that they want to be able to extract from them and sell them. That's why they go for those.
Right. I thought there was legislation passed that made it much more difficult to sell them to the recyclers.
I haven't heard any of that, but I'm not too big on the catalytic converter thefts themselves. So I'm not saying that that's true or not true, but I haven't heard anything either way on that, because there's still an uptick in them. It hasn't, if there was legislation passed, it's not slowing them down.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah.
We've got a question from the audience here, Beverly. I'm gonna unmute your mic, or give you permission to unmute your mic. So you're welcome to unmute and ask your question.
Okay. Last month, I can't tell you which date, but around 6 p.m.-ish, on the corner of Southwest West Slope Drive and 79th, there were 3 police cars.
Okay.
And I noticed them as I drove past taking my granddaughter home, and we were wondering what was going on in our neighborhood. And we never heard anything more about it. I'm not seeing anything on your list that looks like it could have been what was going on with 3 police cars, which seemed like a lot of response for a non-emergency.
Yeah, I can look that up. So it was, you said it occurred when was that?
Well, it was last month in January, and it was on the corner of 79th and West Slope Drive.
Okay, 79. Okay, yeah, I'll have to look that up and then I'll pass that on to Officer Wilson. So there could be a lot of reasons why there doesn't necessarily need to be a big emergency response for officers to be more than 3 of them. So it just depends on the situation. I mean, it could be a slow night and there could have been just a theft in progress. So you might have 3 officers wandering over there. So it happens. So if it's a busy night, then you get the 1 response, but you might get 3 officers responding to something that might be lower. So it may seem like there's a lot, but really, I mean, that was just the ones in the area at the time. So, you didn't hear, did you hear sirens going on? Like, was it just the officers
No
responded?
sirens, and they didn't have their lights flashing. They
Yeah,
were
then-
just 3 police cars parked right on the corner of 79th and West Slope Drive.
Yeah, and the other thing is it depending on what the call may have came out as, like, so if a call comes out, for example, is like a domestic, that's a 2-car response minimum. So, you might have, and there might have been a third in the area. So you might have it be, a neighbor heard something going on that sounds like, possibly somebody that's in need of assistance. So then you end up getting 3 officers to respond. And then, it was just somebody who had the TV on loud. So something as simple as that can stem an officer response of that. But usually if you don't hear sirens going on and you don't see a bunch of lights, then that's usually a good sign that there's something not super dangerous in the area, because that would be something like loud containment going on, like we're actively searching for someone. But that sounds like we responded to a call. I'll pass it on to Officer Wilson, and then she can look up to see if what call occurred on there last month. That's an easy one to be able to look up. It's a 3-car response on 79th and West Slope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Beverly, I was out exercising my new knee and walked down West Slope and down 79th and around there and in the afternoon. And I'll tell you, I know there were a lot of cars, but I was astounded on how the cars were this totally backed up all through the neighborhood. It is just amazing. And there actually was a motor there that had pulled somebody over for something, but it was actually even difficult to walk with all the cars there. So that's definitely a continuing problem.
Yes, I've given up on the traffic along West Slope Drive, and I just now am only concentrating on my Southwest 80th Avenue dead end street.
Yeah.
The rest of them can.
There weren't any there, so I think the traffic person perhaps has been doing her job. So.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or any concerns that you'd like to bring up at this time? All right. Well, you folks have a great night, and yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Officer McCullough.
Thank you.
Okay, Troy. For 12th and Hills Park and Rec.
Good evening. I'm Troy Schader, West Slope NAC representative for 12th and Hills Park and Rec. Got a handful of updates for you tonight. THPRD is hiring.
Troy, excuse me. So Officer McCullough, you're still sharing your screen. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, so THPRD is hiring. That's been an ongoing, I guess, issue for us. We're looking to refill a bunch of opportunities that we lost during the pandemic. So keep an eye on the website if you're interested in working for the Park District. We've got spring registration coming up, so save the date for that. Registration is Saturday, February 26th. The activity guides are available online, and the classes run from March to June for this spring registration. There's a spring native plant sale that is going on this month. You can order online between February 15th and March 15th, and you pick up your plants in April at the 12th and Hills Nature Center. Over 100 species available. So if that's something that you're into, keep an eye on that. I know that's a popular program that we run. Preschool registration opens this month. We're offering 9-month preschool throughout the district. So registration is open for the next school year. So that's available to sign up right now. If that's something that you're interested in doing. The district is looking for middle school cross-country and track coaches. So we need volunteers for those programs. If you know or know of anyone, or if you are personally interested, please reach out for that, because yeah, those positions are hard to fill. The Conestoga swimming pool, so that's been under construction for a period of time here, and that is nearing completion. So if anyone uses that facility, that's good news. It's opening back up and at a good time. So let's see, we've got a new dog run that is getting, planning is underway for Ridgewood Park. So that's expected to open in 2022. Going through the design and permitting phase of that right now. So adding another dog run to our inventory. Those are popular amenities in our park. So yeah, probably some more of those to come around the district as well. Those are all the updates that I have for you. Does anyone have any questions for me? Terry.
A quick question about the Ridgewood. Is that the park that's right at the ramp from 217 and 26, or kind of around?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
There's community garden there.
Okay. Just want to be, I knew that there was another one by the school, but I didn't know if that was, okay. All right.
Yeah,
So
one by
that
the school is called Ridgewood View.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Mhm.
All right. Any other questions for Troy? All right. Thank you, Troy.
Thanks for having me. Have a good night.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have our city update. Franziska.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Franziska Rose Elliott. I'm the Public Involvement Coordinator for the City of Beaverton. I work with Miles in the Neighborhood Program, and I just have a couple of updates for you for February. So the first one is an update to the community, Beaverton's community vision. One of the city's guiding tools to help inform city priorities is underway. The community vision is a citywide project with input from community members that provides a framework for helping to determine what kind of community we want for our future. The Visioning Advisory Committee is the volunteer group that leads outreach efforts and the primary authors and accountability partners for the plan. The current update consists of outreach to community members, surveys, virtual and live events, and other participation. Goals include involving the city's population in the process, a focus on intentional outreach to traditionally underrepresented groups, being responsive to the changing needs of the community, and developing a final product that will be useful for City Council and staff. The original community vision plan was adopted by City Council in 2010. The latest update in 2016 included 5 goals and 104 actions. Milestones are compiled and shared every year. The 2016 vision realized and inspired many city projects that have been completed or are currently in development. The current update will reflect outcomes that will inform the city's vision in a new and different way. And you can learn more about that at beavertonoregon.gov/vision. Beaverton City Council election filing is underway. Beaverton residents interested in running for election to the Beaverton City Council can obtain a candidate's filing handbook. The deadline in filing is Tuesday, March 8th at 5 p.m. 4 city council positions elected at large are open. Councillor positions 1, 2, and 5 will be nominated at the primary election and elected at the general election to serve a 4-year term. With the primary election, 2 candidates with the most votes for each position will proceed to the general election ballot. If one candidate receives a majority of all votes cast, then that candidate alone is nominated to the general election ballot. The candidate with the majority of votes at the general election is elected. Councillor position 3 is a vacant position due to resignation within 3 years, with 3 years remaining on the unexpired term for this office. Candidates must be 18 years of age by the election date, a qualified elector of the state, and have lived in city limits 6 months prior to the election date. The candidate's filing handbook with requirements for petition and signatures can be obtained from the City Elections Office at Beaverton City Hall, 12725 Southwest Milliken Way, or beavertonoregon.gov/elections. The primary election is May 17th, 2022, and the general election is November 8th, 2022. Tune in to city council meetings for discussions and decisions on important city topics. This month, agenda items planned include presentations on the Comprehensive School Resource Officer Review, the Milliken Way Project and Downtown Equity Strategy Update. Work sessions include a review of legislative bills, capital improvement plan priorities, and reimbursement districts. The City Council will also review and discuss two-year strategic goals identified in late 2021, along with a priorities work plan. Upcoming City Council meetings are, there's only one left in this month, February 22nd, and meeting agendas and minutes can be found at beavertonoregon.gov/city council. And I'll put all those links in the chat here, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has about anything that I just referenced or anything else city related that I may or may not have the answer to, but if I don't, I'm happy to get it for you.
Yes, I saw that the parking structure by the research center is now open.
It is indeed, yes. It just opened this week, and I can give you some more details on that, actually, including the parking fees. So let me look at this here. So parking at the new garage is available to the public 24 hours a day at the following rates. So it's 0 to 8 hours is $1 an hour. 8 hours to 24 hours is a $15 flat rate. And if you lose your ticket, it's $18. There's 270 public parking spaces, including 7 ADA accessible spaces and 4 charging stations for electric vehicles. So it'll be a great boon for that whole area to have lots more parking, especially once the RESER gets going next month, which is also very exciting. And there is a free public day for the RESER. I think it's is that what you were about to say, Terry? I think it's March 13th. Is it Sunday, March 13th?
I was going to ask you to kind of give us a little primer on the opening of the RESER.
Yeah, so let me get some more information here. So yes, the Patricia Resource Center for the Arts will open to the public on March 1st. And the RESER's opening performance on Tuesday, March 8th at 7:30 p.m. is Ubuntu, an internationally acclaimed vocal quintet from Zimbabwe, to commemorate International Women's Day and to kick off the grand opening week at the RESER. And the grand opening week continues on Saturday, March 12th with the legendary Count Bass Orchestra, and Sunday, March 13th with the Shine a Light, a community celebration, which is the free all-day family-friendly, including tours, exploring the RESER, arts activities, and fantastic performances, including icing, the Beaverton Civic Theater, the Bundy Band, Oregon Rhythmic Gymnastics and Dance Academy, and more. The Beaverton Symphony Orchestra caps the day with a special concert to celebrate the grand opening. So I'll put the link for that here in the chat for that free community day on March 13th, if you want to mark your calendars.
Cool.
Are there any other questions on anything else that I referenced or anything else going on at the city that you're curious about? Well, in the interest of all things city, I did want to note that Drew Vanderveen from Code Compliance is here with us tonight. And I don't know if anybody had any code related questions that Drew is happy to help answer. He didn't have an official spot on the agenda, but he's here in case there were any questions related to code compliance. And welcome, Mayor Beaty.
Any questions for Drew?
Just a note, Drew and his crew from Code Compliance came to our January BCCI meeting and introduced their program to us. And I guess I would encourage Drew to kind of give us just a little summary of how you guys operate, because I thought you had a really nice presentation, and I think the folks around here would be interested in knowing a little bit about code compliance and how you guys operate.
Sure, I'm happy to do that, and thank you. Basically, we're a 3-person crew. West Slope is my NAC. It's one of 4, and it is by far the cleanest and least complained about NAC. We have roughly 125 open cases right now in the city, and West Slope accounts for 3% of that. So it's a great, well-kept neighborhood. It's quiet. You don't have a lot of messy properties. You don't have a lot of real beat up sidewalks, which are things we look for. Right now, the thing we're focusing on is we're coming into spring. Everything is blooming. The grass is growing. The weeds are growing faster than we can tackle them. So we're just telling people, kind of be proactive about the vegetation growing. If your grass or weeds gets to be over 12 inches tall, you may get a note on the door from us saying, hey, when you get a chance, can you please cut those back? Same with tree branches. If they're hanging over the sidewalk, that impedes pedestrians. Over the sidewalk, tree branches should be trimmed to 8 feet above the surface, just to give everybody a safe walkway. One other thing we're looking at this time of year is discarded vehicles. The definition of that is a car that does not run, is not registered, and cannot be driven on the public road. And so we are asking people to either remove those entirely from the property or store them in a garage. And we do work with other charities that will take a car off your property if you just have no use for it and you want it gone. We're happy to help you with that too. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Drew, one you might want to check out is on Canyon Lane. Across from Canyon Grill area, there's a general parking area, but there's been what looks like it'd be an abandoned RV there for about a week so far.
You said that's
trash or
across
anything around it, but it's been sitting there for quite a while.
And that's across from Canyon Grill and that small strip mall there.
Right by we're just outside the strip mall.
Yeah, I'm happy to run by there tomorrow.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions about sidewalks, about any of the programs we have?
Can we get some
like more
sidewalks?
I was gonna say,
Sidewalk.
West Slope is a pretty devoid of sidewalk NAC.
Yeah.
So Terry, I hear that you would like some sidewalks. Is that correct?
Well, I think that we have I'm probably going to bring it up with the mayor, along Canyon Lane, which is basically a neighborhood route with a very narrow area for pedestrians, and pedestrians, including myself, do use that regularly. And so that would be an area that I think would be a focus for sidewalks.
Okay.
Amen.
So add some sidewalks is what you'd like to see there.
Instead of the ditches.
It's certainly safer.
Yes, you got it. Perfect.
Any other questions? Because we're running a little short on our agenda.
Okay. The question has to do with the sidewalks and walking. A number of people on Canyon Lane, they're pretty good about using the walking path because otherwise they're walking in a ditch on Canyon Lane. But for instance, West Slope Drive, they do have a walking path, but quite a number of people are walking on the other side of the road, which makes cars have to drive into the middle of the road, and it's not exactly a wide road. Is there any kind of a code compliance thing or anything that we could, I hate to post more signs that say walk in walking lane, but gee, it just seems dangerous not to be walking in the walking lane.
So there is no code, no city code to enforce for pedestrians to use that path. I can talk to the traffic engineer for the city and ask him what ideas he might have to encourage people to use those routes. And that would ultimately be a decision he would make. But I'm happy to talk to him about that.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, thank you.
And
Drew.
just as an addition, that is a route to a middle school. I mean, so school kids would have to use that route as well. So I think it's a higher priority. That and Canyon Lane, I think, are two higher priority roads.
Yeah, there's a good program for sidewalks in schools that are kind of intermingled.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Yeah, do you have I assume you have a longer presentation that covers more things, and perhaps we could have you back in the future?
Absolutely, I can go into more detail and tell you all about what we do.
All right, that would be great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
All right, so next on the agenda is the Oregon Beverage Recycling Center. And Eric, I assume that's what the acronym behind your name is?
Yes, thanks, Joe. I'm Eric Chambers. I'm the External Relations Director at the Oregon Beverage Recycling Cooperative, which is the parent organization for the bottle drop redemption centers. And I'm happy to give, Carl had invited me to give just a little update about how things have been going and kind of what our volumes look like and different drop options and availability in Washington County. And I'm happy to do that. I would be remiss if I didn't defer to Mayor Beaty if she would prefer to go first in the interest of her time. So I am happy to.
Go ahead, Eric. I
sure?
just
Okay.
Yeah, but make it quick. So no.
Yes, I'll be quick. So again, Carl asked just for kind of a general 2021 update, how things kind of looked and went. As you'll recall, the return to retail closed down at the beginning of COVID-19 in March of 2020. And so for the beverage container redemption program, the bottle drop network was kind of the only game in town. And that put a lot of pressure on our centers. And those retail closures continued on into 2021. And it was actually not until kind of late spring of 2021 that we were able to get return to retail reestablished in the Beaverton area and across the rest of the state on July 6th. So we're kind of back into a more normal environment from a container redemption perspective. A few highlights of 2021 in the Beaverton, Washington County area. We did add a number of additional drop doors. I think last time I was able to join your neighborhood association was in June of 2021. And I mentioned then that we were working on the new drop location at the Town Square Fred Meyer, which is actually within the convenience zone of the redemption center. So it's a voluntary one for purposes of Fred Meyer. And we worked really closely with them to try to make that available for customers. And that's been really a popular return path. We also have drop doors now at Fred Meyer Walker Road, where I was today, checking in. And then we have at Fred Meyer Embry and TV Highway, more in the Hillsborough area, but there's a lot of volume that's going through those locations as well. And we have Fred Meyer Newburgh. I know that's a ways out, but it decreases some of the volume at the Beaverton Redemption Center. They have a drop location now, and Safeway Aloha. And then two new seasons, Nyberg River and Orenco Station, are both slated for drop doors here in the first half of this year. So a lot more bag drop options. And we've seen a positive impact on volume at the Redemption Center as a result of that and traffic to the Redemption Center. We actually had a 16% decrease in the total number of bags processed at the Redemption Center last year. That's at the same time that we had, system-wide, we went from 8.3 million bags processed to 11.2 million bags processed. So it wasn't for a factor of bag volume going down, but just those additional drop options helping to spread out the volume across the community, which is great. We also have a new kind of structure or concept that we're working where we have dedicated employees who are pulling bags on a constant rotating process on those Washington County drop doors and loading trailers so that there's an efficient removal of the bags. And when you go during peak volume seasons, and if you've ever seen a full drop door at one of those locations, that should get a lot better this summer as we go into higher volume. So we're excited for that. The Beaverton Redemption Center remains just a really important piece of Oregon's recycling system. There were 42 million individual containers that were processed through that facility in 2021, 338,000 green and blue bags, and that's another 24.2 million containers. So in total at the Beaverton Redemption Center, they processed over 65 million containers in 2021. And to give just an idea of how important that is, all of the containers that you redeem through the bottle bill are sequestered just with beverage containers throughout the recycling process. And so that actually means that they remain food grade, grade A materials throughout the recycling process, and then are recycled domestically here in the United States into grade A products again, often in a closed loop, a bottle to bottle or can to can, which is a really extremely high quality of recycling. And so we're really proud. The bottle bill just turned 50. It was passed in 1971, and it's been fun to watch it change and evolve along the way, but great to see some of those outstanding outcomes. Our redemption rate statewide actually went from around 80% in 2020 to I think 83.6% in 2021. So it's starting to ramp back up, and that compares nationally at the very top of the stack in terms of states that get outstanding outcomes on the redemption side. So really good recycling outcomes that we can all be very proud of. One of the things that I love is our blue bag program that nonprofits are able to use. It works just like the green bag program, but the containers and the bags benefit those nonprofits. And so I track that by redemption center. And so just an idea of kind of the impact of that in your community, we had 443 nonprofits, different distinct nonprofits, drop bags at the Beaverton Redemption Center in 2021, which was up from 385 nonprofits in 2020. So the number of nonprofits that are showing activity in that area and raising funds through bottles and cans continues to increase. Collectively, they dropped 22.6 thousand, so 22,600 blue bags at the Beaverton Redemption Center last year. And that was 3,000 higher than in 2020, and they raised $157,000 for their organizations in your area, which is just a really cool piece of the Oregon system in terms of helping do twice the good with our bottles and cans. So that's kind of a high level update of what we saw in 2021, and we're happy to be back. I don't know if we can call this a normal environment from a COVID perspective, but happy to be back into a more normal environment and continuing to grow out the bottle drop network and provide more opportunities and paths for customers to return containers. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Eric? Yeah, West Slope Community Library, I know, is one of the participants in the bottle drop program for donations.
Awesome.
Beverly
Yes.
has a question.
I have a question. I understand the partner retailer drop locations do not charge the 40 cents per bag, and also there is not a limit of 15 bags per quarter. Do you have any plans to increase the partner retailer drop locations? The closest one to me is the one that is on Walker Road and I don't know, Murray, I guess it is.
Really, you're a bottle drop pro. You're even using the right language. So the partner retail drop locations, those are dealer redemption centers in statute. And when a retailer locates one of these bulk bag drop facilities at their location, their individual container take-back requirement goes from 144 containers down to 24 individual containers from how many they need to take per individual per day. And Beverly is right. That also means that there's no quarterly limit on the number of bags that you can drop at those locations, and the store pays the 40-cent processing fee on your behalf. So there's a really good advantage for the customers. Also, and Beverly, I'm sure you know this, but for the rest of the group, if you choose to use your container redemption funds in your bottle drop account as store credit at one of these participating stores, they'll add an extra 20% to it as an incentive. So it's a way to make it go a little bit further and get another couple cents per container. To answer your question, Beverly, there's right now the partner retail locations that are nearest you are exactly that. It's Walker Road, Fred Meyer on Embry Drive, and Fred Meyer at TV Highway. In addition to that, well, and Safeway Aloha. And then in addition to that, we have 2 new seasons that are in line to become partner retail locations where there would be no fee charged at all. The only retail drop door where there's still a 40-cent processing fee charged in the Beaverton area is at the Town Square Fred Meyer. And that, again, is because that's located within the convenience zone of the existing redemption center. And so that they're not actually obligated to provide that. They just did it as we call it a bottle drop express, but just as an additional drop option for customers. So it acts like the redemption center from a fee perspective, but it can be a convenient way to drop your bags when you're out and about.
I have Costco's reactivated their machines. Where do they fit into this program?
Yeah, so Costco, any retailer that's over 5,000 square feet in size and sells qualifying beverage containers is required in statute to take up to 144 individual containers per person per day, unless they are within a redemption center convenience zone, or they do the partner retail program that Beverly just mentioned. The Costco that you noted, they would have reactivated their machines as a result of return to retail coming back after COVID. The OLCC lifted the COVID restrictions. So right now there's still an individual container, individuals can take 144, individual containers and put them through the machines there per day right now. We actually don't have any Costco's in our system that have chosen to go the partner retail bag path. We did recently hear from Walmart, not in Washington County, but they don't have any drop doors either. And we heard from them that they may have interest in a couple of their stores. So it's still, that program was launched in statute in 2019. So that's still a pretty new return path for retailers. And we're growing statewide, we're growing those drop locations at the rate of maybe 1 or 2 a month right now. So pretty aggressive rollout. There were 70 at the end of 2020. We ended 2021 with 83. And we've got 4 in the queue right now. So they're coming on pretty good and continuing to build those out. But it'll be a mix. I think some retailers will do the individual take back. Some retailers will want to do the bag program. And in some ways, that's kind of ideal because that provides good options for people who want instant returns, for people who are more patient in the bags, a little bit for everybody.
Super. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Chris. I have a quick one. I haven't been to the Fred Meyer since they reopened in Town Square, but it used to be that when you would take things there, you'd have probably half the machines that were jammed or down or some problem with them. I'm wondering if the technology's improved at all since then.
Yeah, so they won't have they won't be running the individual machines because they're within the convenience zone of the redemption center. So the individual take back for that area is at the redemption center. But what they have now is a voluntary bag drop location. So that's the one that you open up with your bottle drop account card, and then you can put your green and blue bags through the door there. So it's just a bag drop location, and that technology is very smooth.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Any other questions for Eric? Well, I utilize the redemption center there, and it's amazing how much stuff people have. it's just really an experience going there. But yeah, I think overall it runs pretty well. So thanks for managing this program. And it certainly seems to keep the cans and bottles and things off the streets and roads, because you just don't see them anywhere. So that's great.
It's one of those things that's just uniquely Oregonian. We were the first one in the nation to pass a bottle bill. We do polling with DHM Research from time to time to just hear kind of consumer feedback. And 94% of Oregonians in a poll last month are familiar with our container return system. And 97% of those continue to say it's good for Oregon. So it's one of those things that just produces good outcomes and shares wide support, and we're happy to be the stewards of it and be part of it. And if you ever need anything, Carl knows how to get me. He's got my cell number, so happy to answer any questions or anything that you may have along the way.
All right, appreciate you coming.
You bet. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Eric. All right, Mayor Beaty, we are so glad to have you here. I'll have you know that we actually changed our meeting night that we had for like 20 years so that you would be able to attend. We used to meet on Tuesday evenings instead. So we're happy to have you here and welcome.
Thanks for having me. I have been trying to get out to all the board or all the neighborhoods since being elected. It's challenging sometimes with night meetings. I have a 4-year-old. So tonight I've been at 2 other NAC meetings before this one and one last night as well. I don't have like a strict agenda because I think every neighborhood wants to hear different things that are happening. So I'll just give you my kind of quick overview of what I think are the Beaverton highlights right now that community members should be paying attention to. One, in December, the council met in person to set our kind of high level goals for the city. And our new form of government, the way that we set goals is different than how we've set goals in the past. So the council really kind of set high level what we want out of a community. And so the city manager will be coming back to us with a plan on next Tuesday night. The council will review the city manager work plan. So we told the city manager, this is what we want to accomplish. You know, these are kind of the goals. We want to work in equity. We want to work in sustainability. We want to do these things. Come back to a work plan to city council with a work plan, which is vastly different than the 8 years I've been an elected official in Beaverton, which the elected officials sat in a room and said, we want to do this project and we want to do this project and we want to do this project because of the way the form of government worked. We're now really trying to set high level goals, 2 to 3 year goals for the city manager to kind of work in. So that plan comes to city council next Tuesday night and we'll be reviewing it to like, yeah, you missed them. Yeah, it's right on. You're amazing. You're the best hire we ever did. You got every single one of our hopes, desires, and outcomes into this plan, or we might have a little bit of tweaks along the way. My guess is it's going to be somewhere in the middle of that. And so if you're interested in that, that will be out in the city council agenda this week. And then right after that, it's going to be like budget season. The 2 mainstays for elected officials in Beaverton is to manage the budget and to set policy. We of course go off in a million other different directions, but just like, you know, the 2 American things that you need to do is vote and serve on a jury. Those are baseline, that's the floor, not the ceiling. For us, it's set policy, manage the budget. That's the floor, not the ceiling. So that's kind of where we're at. We got our budget starting. Councillor Sansusi and I are throwing around the idea of doing a budgeting kind of 101 class for our community so they can understand the municipal budgeting process, which I have an MBA, and the way that we manage budget in the city is vastly different than most organizations do. So we're thinking about bringing back an oldie but a goodie to kind of teach the community about municipal budgeting. And really so they can understand at a high level what we're doing, because it's really hard for elected officials to impact the budget, let alone an average person reading the budget that comes with testimony on budget night. It's like too late, like the cake is baked kind of situation. So we want to teach people how they can have meaningful impact into the budget making process. So those are kind of the 2 big things we're working on. Of course, I know you guys have 100 things you want to talk to me about tonight. So I obviously could talk for an hour. I'm an elected official, but I'd rather hear from you guys about what you want to know from me. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So if anyone has questions, you can hit either this raise your hand in the video or hit the raise hand reaction. All right, Chris.
It's a question, I guess, that comes down to climate change resilience in a way, and I know the city's been planning for that, but this would also be one that includes the power company because, you know, we get a lot of power outages here in West Slope. I think it's because we have so many nice trees that we love, but on the other hand, you know, if storms are going to be increasing with climate change, the reliability of the power source is a consideration. So is that something that the city gets involved with planning, or is that entirely in the hands of PG&E?
It's a little bit of both. So actually we have this conversation quite a lot. I sit on the regional disaster preparedness organization, which is made up of elected officials across the region. When the ice storm hit last January, and shut down a lot of Clackamas County, Westland, Lake Oswego, Maria Pope, the CEO of PGE, told me if that storm's epicenter had been Beaverton and not there, we would have been down for weeks. Our system is old, it is not undergrounded, and we're at extreme vulnerabilities because we don't underground here. And so one of the things in the current presidential administration is infrastructure. And so we're looking at a regional ask to how to make our power system more resilient because it is really old. The other thing, I have a lot of interest in microgrids And that's a way to like pump the system a lot differently. And for us, if we want to really meet our climate action goal, like more charging stations, more electric vehicle uses, our grid isn't really like, our grid is what would limit us from turning everything on at once. And so, you know, I live in a single family home. Of course, I have a charger. 50% of Beaverton is in rentals, mostly multifamily rentals. So how are we starting to plan for that? We need more microgrids. We have a microgrid. We're very proud of the project we did at the police station. And so it runs the power in the building and puts charges back to the neighborhood here. So how do we invest more in that? There will be grants from the federal government specifically around microgrids. And so we're preparing ourselves to how we're going to be able to apply and look at some of that money. The other big thing that the city has a role in this issue is undergrounding. If our utilities are undergrounded, they're not susceptible to the weather the same way. Of course, in an event like Cascadia subduction, earthquake, magnitude 10, that's a lot different. And we would look at ways that we can do seismic upgrading when we underground, but that is really the way that we're going to do it. We haven't started an aggressive undergrounding system, but the council has been talking a lot about it. And so we underground basically everywhere we can. Every time there's a big project, we underground, but it would really require us to open up a lot of streets. It would require a lot of capital investment to do it. So we're kind of patchworking right now. I do think there's a future possibility in the infrastructure package, particularly if Build Back Better is able to pass in the future as well, where there will be monies to municipalities to do this kind of work. And so that's really high on my radar. That doesn't solve the problem right now, but just like we think a lot about this. This is not lost on us.
Okay, thank you.
Terry?
Mute. I was going to talk about collaboration. And I know the city council, is very well aligned with the Beaverton School District. But we up here in West Slope have a large part of our neighborhood that is associated with the Portland School District. And we have difficulties sometimes in our communication with that district, because obviously we're being such a minor part of that bigger whole that is the Portland School District, we kind of get ignored. But we have a middle school here. As you know, we had a rather contentious land use situation. They're proceeding with these field improvements, but nevertheless, those field improvements really just will add to a traffic problem in our neighborhood it's been ongoing forever. Parents, whipping by, dropping off kids, whipping out of the neighborhood as quickly as possible, traffic backups, etc. So I guess I would just advocate maybe your contribution to this communication pathway that we've been sort of stymied. And I'll just ask the question, have you had an opportunity ever to reach out to the Portland School District on behalf of the residents of West Slope?
So I have talked a lot to them during the hearing over the parks. 3 of the school board members are just close personal friends that I know through politics. So we've had a lot of conversation around, this is one of the unfortunate, we have such boundary issues. This is one major one that I think I don't have a solution today, and that's challenging for me. But I do think what I've kind of taken under my mayorship here is I do something called summits, where it's almost I don't know what the answer is, but can we bring people together to have conversations about it? I did this around vaccines. I've done this around after school care. I've done it around air conditioning. So I think we could work towards something like that. I think what is challenging is the solutions that might come out. It's kind of like a labor negotiation. Everyone's going to be a little unhappy. No one's going to be super excited, but maybe we make a meaningful first step in the direction of solving this issue. And Portland Public School it's a beast of a school district, and they're challenging for multitudes of reasons to work with, but I don't find them unreasonable. But how do we pull the right kind of chain together? I have gone out and sat out there after school and watched it. I'm one of the only elected officials that's walked every street of Beaverton. I've walked your guys' neighborhood multiple times when I was campaigning. So I'm very aware of the drainage issues, the sidewalk issues, where the school is located, where the non-existent park is located by THPRD. I've come and sat there when after school hours were coming. And honestly, with middle school and elementary schools, this is a problem we see across the entire district because they're neighborhood schools. And so it's so much different than our high schools. You know, we are actually dealing with this with St. Cecilia's of downtown Beaverton because coming to get their kids is causing massive backup onto the road during, you know, break and drop off. So I think, you know, what we're considering with that school is having like some of our police officers that work in traffic flow come and look to say, here's the layout. Is it possible to have a pickup and drop off lane that is vastly different that might redirect it off the road? Your guys' problem is unique because it's a freaking cul-de-sac. And so that's probably not the answer you wanted to hear, but I think there's a possibility for us to do some collaborative work around this. I just, I don't have the influence with PPS that I do with BSD.
Kent?
Well, you can hear me?
You have your hand up, yeah.
So you can't hear me, good. All right, well, it kind of goes back to two questions. So we keep hearing that sidewalks could be imminent and we could go underground with our electric. I mean, could that ever happen? I mean, we've heard this for years. I mean, how realistic, whether it was Mayor Drake or Mayor Doyle, we've all kind of heard that, but what can we hope for? I mean, is underground cable or underground electric going to be possible? Because we are very, very vulnerable. And then the sidewalks on Canyon Lane would be a dream.
So for undergrounding to occur, it would probably, for us to like force do it under the code and how we're operating now, is it would have to be a massive capital improvement. I know there's a future CIP project planned for Canyon Lane. So it's a water project. So I can talk with our, what I'll go is look at, let me go talk to our public works to see what that plan looks like. It doesn't include undergrounding. And sidewalks, I mean, I've talked a lot about sidewalks. You know, we had the largest investment in sidewalk infrastructure in 20 years on Menlo Street. And I was the kind of architect of getting that there because it had 7 bus stops on it and no street lights. The thing is that sidewalk cost nearly $3 million. And so the reality is there's not a lot of money. So what is left in our toolbox to kind of address some of these? My hope would be in the infrastructure package, there is money that we could leverage or bond against to do more sidewalk projects. We're looking at all kinds of areas, like people don't, you know, we can look at local improvement districts, which means we put liens on people's houses to pay for it. Nobody wants that. How do we how we need to look at building sidewalks in neighborhoods like yours that haven't ever had them. Central Beaverton is in the same boat. And I would say your neighborhood and Central Beaverton are probably the most underutilized. Like they don't have the infrastructure that the rest of the city has. And so I recognize that. I want you to know I recognize that. It is how do we fund and pay for it? I will tell you something that has shifted with the council in the last couple of weeks is that we had very little influence into the capital improvement project. We were often brought kind of fully baked projects saying, here's what we're working on for the next 10 to 20 years. Do you agree, yes or no? It was like an up or down vote. And so the council has really said, we should have more oversight into the projects because sometimes we're building sidewalks to nowhere when West Slope has no sidewalks. We're doing something over here in the capital improvement project. And so we now will have a little bit more oversight in that project to be able to like influence projects that go into it. But does that mean you're going to get a sidewalk in the next 2 to 4 years? Probably not. It would probably get in there over the next 5 to 10 years. And I'm not, you know, my elected official style is to not tell you what I think you want to hear to get out of this meeting. And then in the future, we have arguments when I come ask for you to vote for me for re-election. I want to be honest and transparent as possible. When the city annexed your neighborhood, the infrastructure upgrade and cost required, it was massive. And so I wasn't on the council when that happened, but it is, you are here now, you are our family now. And so how are we going to work towards some solutions? And so the city manager I've asked her to look at all the different kind of funding ways we can do sidewalks, because that is pedestrian focused transportation, or like doing that is very central to me. I'm a avid cyclist. I run. We have our kids. I live adjacent to the West Side Trail, and so I know how incredibly important it is that that resource is here. I walk on it every single day. How do we make sure that your neighborhood kids and as you age in place gracefully, you have that same ability to walk in your own neighborhood?
Chris?
I'd just like to go back to Terry's question about Portland Public Schools. Really, the one of the fundamental issues about that whole thing was that the most important decision was already made before they even came in to ask for the permit, which was, is this an appropriate site to put a high school athletic facility in the middle of a residential neighborhood? And that was something that the neighborhood was never consulted about by PPS. They never asked us about that. So, I guess my question or request is, as you talk to PPS, whether it's through one of these summits or informally, is it possible to represent that fact to PPS that, they came in, they already made the biggest decision and we had no input into it. And now we're sort of stuck with this potential project if it ever gets funded. And is there some way to reopen that site selection process to find a more suitable location for it?
I don't see them backpedaling from putting it there, and I don't see that. The only thing that could change that I can see is that they're much further down they're much further along in the Lincoln Field project or the Lincoln rebuilding than they thought they were. And so a lot of these fields are being reallocated because of the displacement of Lincoln High School and COVID, where kids weren't playing sports, like really bought a lot of time. So, I could see that influencing potentially they were going to do it. But, I was the Oregon State lacrosse commissioner for a decade. And so what I did constantly was look for field space, find field space. Where were we at? I was intimately involved with every scheduler in every district. There is a huge need for fields. And so I can't see them not putting a field there once they've allocated the money, because whether or not it's done. But I can call over to the district office and at least ask some questions, because I was down at Lincoln High a couple weeks ago and I was like astonished how far they are in the construction project.
So the kind of the consensus of the neighborhood discussing this over many years is, if we lived in an ideal world, we would like to integrate the West Sylvan School into the Beaverton School District. and all of the Portland Public School territory that's within Beaverton actually be allocated to the Beaverton School District. I mean, our West Slope is half Beaverton School District, half Portland Public, and we're just, we're an appendage, right? Because I don't think they have, I don't know, but my sense is that, everything else is kind of contiguous, and fits in, and West Sylvan is kind of an afterthought to them, and because of us, kind of a pain in the rear as well. And this makes sense to have Beaverton School District be responsible for all the schools in the Beaverton area. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of our, the 80,000 foot view of.
Can we have it after they build the fields? No, I'm just a little tongue to cheek, but.
But I mean, for a long time we had issues, because it wasn't even annexed. It wasn't even annexed. We were holding our meetings there, so our meetings were not actually official. But it has now that property is officially annexed into Beaverton. But it still seems bizarre that Portland Public Schools has the responsibility for that area.
Well, I wouldn't say it's impossible. So Beaverton did a swap with Hillsborough about 3 years ago over schools. I mean, it was over schools that weren't built yet, but the territory, the same arguments that you're making is what they used. And it really slammed people politically, because everyone was like, oh, you did it for X, Y, or not me personally, but the council and the Hillsborough Council that made this decision to kind of move the territory among the school districts. It really was to better serve, to have neighborhood schools. It was like we were going to have Hillsborough kids like commuting through Beaverton to go to school and vice versa. And so I can look into it. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you I'm able to accomplish that, but this has happened. It's not unheard of that something like this could happen. Let me call the superintendent and ask what, you know, like what their plan is. And I wonder if the argument is commuting, right? Like coming, you know, where families are coming and going from. So let me look more into that.
I think a large proportion of the students that go to West Slope Middle School are from the, you know, Portland's Heights, Fairview, Hewitt-Humphreys area. And it's kind of bizarre that they just kind of drive over here and, you know, the kids go to school and then they go back to where like they live. And so they're not, and I think part of it is they do not actually feel that they're part of the community where the school is located. Which is why they really seem to be indifferent to the traffic problems they cause.
Yeah, you know, 80% of the traffic tickets that we give out in the city are to people who don't live here. And so it's that same kind of, you know, you speed through neighborhoods that aren't your own. You're more cautious when you come into your own neighborhood because you know Johnny's kids down the street. And so every time people complain about traffic tickets to me, I'm like, but they're mostly not from here. So do we want people speeding our known neighborhoods?
Yeah, so I think, and just as part of the history, I think sidewalk on Canyon Lane was probably one of the first asks we gave 25 years ago when we annexed in. And, you know, like you said, everyone's been very sympathetic, but we still have no sidewalk. So
Yeah, that's true.
So you guys only had easy questions for me tonight. Annexation, bottle drop, sidewalks, undergrounding.
Yeah.
You guys don't want to talk to me about homelessness or crime? I'm just kidding. We don't need to.
Yeah, we really don't have any issues here.
Okay, good.
You know, and I talked to, you know, friends we have in Portland, and they're astonished at the responsiveness of, you know, the police or any aspect of Beaverton city government. So we're absolutely delighted that the vote went to annex with Beaverton rather than Portland, because it would just be another one of those West Slope, you know, West Sylvan school appendage, and probably be hard to get Ted Wheeler to come to our meeting.
Yeah.
You know, would you want Ted Wheeler at your meeting?
I'm
So
not so sure now.
But you know, I will tell you, I think a year and some change in doing this, we have a fantastically responsive police department that are solution driven, which I appreciate. We, like every city, have issues around homelessness and housing insecurity that we're working constantly to balance livability with civil rights and being kind, caring people. You know, we have really great safe haven parking programs where the average person that uses it's a 70-year-old woman. Our houseless community in Beaverton doesn't look like what Portland does. We do get like these pop-up, you know, near the library where we start to get more visual, but the majority of the work that we're doing is in this population that does not want to be viewed as homeless. Young people, you know, on couches, women in their cars in our safe haven parking lot. And so we have a lot of great work. And I would say, you know, our city is functioning really well. We were hit really hard with COVID. So finances over the next couple of years are going to be challenging for us, like every organization that kept all their employees on during COVID. But we're coming back. We're seeing a lot more revenue coming in from building. We're coming out of this COVID environment. COVID response has been what I've majority been working on since being the mayor. I have a 4-year-old that's not eligible to be vaccinated yet. It weighs on me heavily that we're going to be lifting the mask mandate in the next couple months when I know my child isn't protected. And so we're doing just, I think, the best we can. And I would say what we're doing with ARPA money, what we're doing in neighborhoods, what we're doing for COVID response is really great. And I think this is a great time to live in Beaverton. Now, that's not to say we don't have our flaws and there's things we got to work on. We got to get you a sidewalk. I got to annex the school. I mean, real low hanging fruit. But you know, I think those are the issues I want to get to work on. I don't want to have to continue talking about COVID and masks and vaccines. And so to be able to kind of do some of the real sexy work of the mayor's office, like sidewalks and undergrounding.
Yeah. So has there been any thought of having the council come from geographical areas?
I think it's a challenging thing to do when you also have term limits, because that really starts to limit the pool. So communities really either need to have geographical distances or term limits. But you can look at somewhere like Hillsborough that has both, and their term limits are 2 terms. They're not always getting like the best, and it's not the best person for the city. It's the best person that lives in this geographical boundary that's willing to serve for 8 years. And so we've kind of trailed down the path of term limits versus that particular piece. Because the reality is I lived in Central Beaverton before I lived in Sexton Mountain. We recently moved a couple months ago. I cared just as much about all the other neighborhoods as I did Central Beaverton, but with term limits, more people are going to be able to serve in government. It's going to create some space for different voices to come in. And really, like, you could serve 12 years on council and then 12 years as mayor. So someone could spend a quarter of a century serving the city. So I don't think it's like the wrong amount of time. Now, maybe when I get to 12 years as mayor, if the voters continue to let me come back, maybe I'll feel differently 12 years from now. But I spent 8 years as a counselor, and I'm really excited to do this job now.
Great. Any other questions for the mayor?
Of course.
It's like we have one from Kent and one from Hare.
Yeah. Well, one more question for me. I mean, how do I say this? Because we've been annexed for about 23 years, and we touch so many parts of Beaverton or Washington County. How do we get more people? You know, because I'm always championing Beaverton, and are you championing yourself? Are you trying to get more? I mean, can we look kind of funny where there's kind of a little edge of Beaverton? There's other parts that you don't have, and I just like to have more people in Beaverton. And how are you trying to promote yourself? And when was the last time you had it?
Well, I feel like I'm Beaverton's #1 cheerleader. That's literally what I do from the second I wake up till the time I go to bed. I started with a 7 a.m. meeting. I'm here with you at 8 p.m. But I think annexation is really a topic that has like just rough edges around it. And you guys would be in the column of like, don't annex to a city. They're never going to give you a sidewalk. I mean, I don't want to think I want to tout around West Slope as part of my annexation success story, because we've not done you good. And so I think we have to weigh the responsibility of like, would we take Bethany and Aloha together? Probably, and their infrastructure is vastly different and in different places. Could we only absorb neighborhoods that don't have streetlights or sidewalks or undergrounding, and the capital improvement to come in is really high, all while people want a discount on property taxes to annex into the city to use the resources they're probably already using, like our library, our police department, our water, and all of those things. So we're trying to balance those things out. The state laws also made it really difficult. We can't force you to annex. We have to go out and do the dog and pony show and say, and we tried that in Bethany a few years ago, and me and Commissioner Greg Malinowski were given side-by-side reasons, like, why should you join a city? Why should you stay unincorporated? And Commissioner Malinowski stands up, and if you guys remember him, he always had pants that were like 6 inches too short before it was cool to wear short pants. And he goes, well, you should live in unincorporated because you could kill a goat in your backyard. And I'm like, this is Bethany. Like, I don't see a lot of goat killing happening in Bethany. So I think, the state legislators made it really hard. I think Beaverton has an interest in the future of at least making our boundaries congruent and making sure everyone within it. We've not been as aggressive with annexation as, say, Hillsborough, that annexed all the churches, all the parks, all the schools, we could have, they've taken a very different path, and that was the past administration had a very different view. And so, I think in the future, I would love to make you guys not the weird tip of Beaverton and bring everyone around you in. And so I think you're in our ultimate service boundaries, and everyone else is too. And if we annex everything that the metro government says is Beaverton in the future, we would be the second largest city in the state.
There we go.
And I think also you're selling yourself a little short. I think code enforcement in the city, as represented by this wonderful individual that showed up this evening, way better than in unincorporated Washington County. And our police are way better. And I think a lot of our neighborhood program is so much better. So I think there's a lot of reasons to tout that extra taxation increment that you pay for the city. I think there's a lot of programs and services that we get. And I want to add that to your list when you're out there talking to people in unincorporated
Oh,
Washington.
I do, because you know how many hearts I break every year when I say you can't serve on one of our important boards and commissions because you don't live here, like our
Ooh.
planning, our traffic, our budget, and how we spend money. But I do know, like, simultaneous to all this happening, you know, the county has a new administrator that's like, why are we doing all of these services that like cities should be doing? Like, we weren't ever designed to like have a police force. They're supposed to be like rural, kind of out in the backwoods. They weren't designed to have a water. They're not delivering parks, libraries, and people in those areas have this want and desire to have those services, and the county is like, we ain't going to do it. So I do think, you know, there is a much closer future to having this conversation than I would have said 2 years ago.
So,
Interesting. Thank you for that interesting update.
Todd, you've had your hand up for a while. Okay, you're muted now.
Sorry, thank you. Am I unmuted now? Is my hand down?
Your
Yeah.
hand is down and
Okay.
you're hot on the mic.
I just wanted to confirm what all these other residents of, you know, West Slope, official West Slope, part of Beaverton, and I live right across Highway 8 in unincorporated Washington County, which I love, but I've always felt a part of the Beaverton community, regardless of me not officially in my apartments being in the city. And the reason that I just wanted to say that all these people are so right that they've been fighting to make the school issue, and that the neighborhood and the school are united the way the other parts of Beaverton are, and that you said you will work very hard at that, or however you said it, because an example of losing more of our community, even though West Slope Library, which isn't in Beaverton, is in Raleigh Hills, it's totally funded. It's totally funded by Washington County, and it used to be much more community oriented, but when they did the whole remodel, Washington County has now all the say about the hours that go on there, about who's hired. And I was really involved with that library, as are many neighbors of mine who live in Raleigh Hills and some in the West Slope. Now they're just part of the Hillsborough County. They don't have good hours. That's just an example of something that I think really went the wrong way with them having the political power, because they provided all the money to remodel the West Slope Library. And I don't want to see the Portland Public School be this sore that it sounds like it is, to use a term, but I believe it's somewhat accurate, to be a sore in the sides of all of these people who live in West Slope neighborhood, part of Beaverton, and are just being blown off. So I'm really glad that they showed their insistence and their devotion to their neighborhood, not just becoming whatever it could become that would be worse than it is right now.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's clear we got a lot of work to do. I would say that this NAC is the most bigger of any NAC we go. I hear the most from your community members, so it's definitely a group that knows how to organize. I think the next step for me is I will likely invite the Portland School Board Chair to just come and join me when school's letting out and just talking about problems. She's a friend of mine. I think sometimes things are different. You know, I always tell our new city councilors, like, when we're doing land use decisions, when we're making decisions about neighborhoods, go stand in the neighborhood. Don't just look at a map, because how things feel and look are very different in person. And so that's what I always encourage, you know, our planning commissioners quite often do, our traffic commission does. And that's something that I've always done when we have a major decision ahead of us, to really kind of feel what the neighborhood is feeling. And livability is why we all live here. That's why I moved here. I wanted to live in a safe community. You know, my husband and I are military veterans, and, you know, we lived in 10 places in 10 years and nothing felt like home like Beaverton did. And so maintaining that love and feel for our community is important. I think it's also important. Beaverton's growing up. We got a lot of, we're a growing up city right now, and we have a lot of that stress and pressure on us to do better and do more.
Yeah, if you want to take the walk when school's letting out, and you can see the 100 to 200 cars that are sitting on the side of the road or in the street, actually, because there's not room on the side of the road. And probably 80% of them are idling. Seems like just an extraordinary waste of fuel, time, and energy.
And environment.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, Chris?
Just to provide a little bit of context for the the school decision, the Lincoln High School principal sent out an email saying that the plan currently is that if they have money left over from the Lincoln High School construction, that they will request the school board that they're able to use it on the West Slope field. So I don't know when that would occur, but that's the ultimate plan. So that's just something to bear in mind is in terms of the timing and the way that they're thinking of trying to fund it.
Okay.
And probably 98% of the people that utilize that will come from outside of the neighborhood.
Well, I'll tell you, every single one of our capital improvement or capital projects right now are cost overrun upwards of 25%. So I would not be hopeful that there's bond money left in anyone. I mean, we're struggling right now on some of our projects to even fill the gap. And so I could just ask some questions about where they're at.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you saw it. But hopefully, Mayor Beaty, that doesn't mean that our park is in jeopardy. We've been
Well,
told.
I'm not THPRD, so you'll have to go.
Well, that's right. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
willing to take blame for our bad planning over 25 years of sidewalk, but I cannot take blame for the park district.
All right, good point. We're happy with THPRD.
I think we've covered most of the issues. Anyone else have anything different? Well, we really appreciate you attending our meeting via Zoom as it is. Perhaps someday we'll actually be able to go back physically, although this works pretty well. So thank you very much. And we hope to see you again soon.
All right, thanks for having me. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Any old business?
Hey,
I
Joe,
just
did you say where Carl is? What happened with Carl?
Terry tried to contact him, but I don't think she was able to.
He just didn't show up?
He didn't answer his phone, so I don't know where he is.
Yeah.
Really?
Have no idea. Anyway, so I just want to, obviously, we've been redistricted. We are now in District 14. Kate Lieber, I believe, is our state senator. I've never met Kate, have no clue. We are in House District 28, most of which is in Multnomah County.
Really?
Basically, we just have the strip from, where we are down through Raleigh Hills. Is us. I was a House district leader. I had 10 people that were, helping to get out the vote. And I have one person left in our area. So I'm probably not going to be House district leader. I'll still do neighborhood leader program. So we're in 28, and that is Darcy Graber is our state representative. Again, I have no clue. I've never met Darcy. Anyway, so we're going to miss Ken and Elizabeth, I guess. And so that's that. If anyone's interested in running for precinct committee person, I think you have until March 8th to file for that. It allows you to participate in the, in the whatever party you want to go into. And there's plenty of spaces, I think, available for both Republican and Democrat party as well. And then we have May primary, and that's going to be all sorts of interesting things going on with many council seats open and elections. I think Ashley Hartmeyer Prigg is just filled that session, so she's up for election again. So it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be really interesting for the primary, I think.
And just as a note, BCCI will be sponsoring a voters forum. Franziska, do you remember what that date is? I know we've picked a date. I think it's late April.
Yes.
And it will be at the Patricia Research Center.
Cool.
Mhm.
So this will
Nice.
afford an opportunity. I don't know if we're going to have an audience yet, but we're going to be recording it from there at a minimum.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
so
more to come in the future when we
It's-
figure out more
it's April
details.
28th.
April
So
28th.
April 28th at 6:30 PM. And like Terry said, we're waiting to kind of see COVID willing, if we can actually have a live audience, which would be great. The space is obviously designed for that. But I just wanted to throw in the chat here, if you want to see the folks who have already filed for each of those 4 city council positions, there's 1 candidate currently each for those positions. And then obviously after March 8th, we'll know exactly who's running. But that's where we're at, beavertonoregon.gov/elections. You can see who's in the running so far. We've got a couple of NAC members, so hooray, NAC members. We've got, some former board and commission members. So it will definitely be an interesting election, and the voters forum should be very exciting.
And we hope to have them at our NAC meeting as well, maybe March. Well,
Yeah,
figure
that
out.
would be good. That was always really a great experience of having the candidates come and talk to us. So
I agree.
want to do that, especially this year.
Mhm.
And we might to meet our our senator and
State rep.
that would be good too.
Yes, it
maybe
would.
them getting to know us. Since,
As well, yes. Okay, any other business, new or otherwise, old, whatever?
Yeah. This is Todd.
Yes, Todd.
Just wanted to say, I'm really hoping that we will eventually have a physical meeting, because as much as I see you here on the big screen, I know this whole neighborhood and all of West Slope, because I've walked through it for my exercise many times. And I'm just hoping that I can see some people in person instead of just this audio video conference thing.
Yeah, I'm much more fun in person.
Yeah. All right, if there's nothing else, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Hey.
All right. Thanks for all of you for coming. Franziska, thank you very much for.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe, for
All right.
jumping.